Hey y'all, welcome to the Clock Tower. I'm Colton, here with Brandon. It's been a while since our last Clock Talk because of Holy Grail War stuff, but we're back. Lots of updates. Let's get right to them. First things first, Brandon. A lot of changes to the schedule. We were kind of expecting this. A lot of sets getting pushed back because of COVID stuff.
Yeah, all of them. Starting off looking at Slime Volume 2, instead of coming out in September, it has been pushed back to October 8th. Alicization has been pushed back to November 5th. Quintessential Quintuplets has been pushed back to November 19th. Data Bullet coming out December 3rd. RWBY just got announced for December 17th. And then the BanG Dream stuff with Morphonica and the extra boosters are planned to come out January 21st.
So yeah, before this we only had I think 3 actual dates. We knew Data Bullet was November, we knew RWBY was December. We didn't have formal dates for them. Still keeping that same pace on the schedule. The dates are about as far apart as they initially were for the most part, except for Sword Art and Quintuplets, which have now been split up into different days, which honestly I think is a good thing for everybody. But yeah, this means no new releases in September. Our next release will not be until October 8th with Slime 2. Once we hit November, we're going to have releases every 2 weeks until the end of the year. The English exclusive RWBY drops December 17th, like you said, and then the new BanG Dream stuff on January 21st, at which point we should be getting back to probably a monthly schedule. So hopefully a return to a normal schedule, but we'll see. COVID continues. So
With some of these delays and how they're now about 2 weeks apart for like the rest of the year starting in November, I suspect that either that will get adjusted as we get closer to it as well, or the delays are more in shipping than they are in printing.
yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. And honestly, it's in Bushiroad's interest to spread out these releases a little bit because people are more likely to drop money on cases not 2 weeks apart. So they would love to spread this out a little bit more, I think. I don't know what that means going into 2022, but we're also getting to the point where they just have to get these sets out. And they're starting to push into next year with that schedule compression if they change the schedule anymore. So looking into 2022, we still have 3 sets that have been announced in English that don't have dates. Rent a Girlfriend, Mushoku Tensei, and of course the new Hololive stuff. Currently kind of expecting February, March, April on those. But if there is another scheduled release for these sets being released in November, December, I think we could see for sure a lot more stuff getting pushed back down the road into 2022. But yeah, we're still waiting on dates for Rent a Girlfriend, Mushoku Tensei, and Hololive. It is worth noting that in 2 weeks, on September 14th, there will be a Bushiroad strategy presentation where they will make announcements related to JP, including new titles for JP release in 2022. That will be worth keeping an eye on for us because it will likely tell us what we could be getting next summer in English. We'll be going into a much deeper dive on that when we get to the day. We'll be releasing a Clock Talk the same day as the strategy presentation, like within 24 hours of the presentation being done. So we'll be able to talk about everything that gets announced during that stream. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be a really good show. In the meantime, we're waiting to find out what we might get in English next summer or next fall, depending on how this schedule breaks and how many delays we continue to get. COVID continues to be a thing, so we're going to continue to get delays. It's just what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of speaking of kind of following up and whatnot, over the time away from our clock talks, there was a essentially title cup that happened on the remote fight server for Seven Deadly Sins.
Yeah, we had the Seven Deadly Sins tournament take place on Remote Fight. Not a massive turnout for that event, honestly, and we kind of anticipated that it was going to be a little weird, just because the top deck in Seven Deadly Sins is literally anti-auto damage. So we anticipated that some people would probably be playing off meta because they could counter what was going on in the meta, and sure enough, that's exactly what happened. The winner ended up playing Salvage Pants, playing enough green to play that 3-1 event that can remove characters from board.
So I was able to play into that series pretty well, kind of expecting the anti-damage to be an effect on the opponent's side. So being able to remove anti-damage and then deal massive damage by themselves, being able to stand out in that way. So congratulations to Sephiroth for the win, who also placed top 8 in one of the Springfest tournaments as well. It should be interesting to see if Bushiroad continues to do things like this. I really think that Seven Deadly Sins had a kind of almost a big caveat on having a title cup in general, just because of the tech for the anti-auto damage. It really kind of affects how you build your decks around that, especially knowing going into a potential meta that has quite a bit of that, because of how strong it would be against the other top ends. All the other top ends are really based around auto damage, and the only other like clock kick needs a reverse, but if your anti-auto damage is sitting at like 16k, backing up to like 18, 19, you're not going to be able to get big enough to be able to take that on. So being able to build your decks in a way to be able to drastically play into that kind of meta, I don't know if it does it justice for the decks to be able to get the kind of highlighting in of how to build that deck going forward.
And I mean, we just did something similar, right? With the Holy Grail War, talking about how these decks in a set play into each other.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with Seven Deadly Sins is there's basically one deck in the meta for Seven Deadly Sins. There's really only one deck that is going to be able to compete at a high level. So the entire meta in a tournament like this is shutting that off. It's an interesting concept to have these kind of, like you said, title cups with new sets as they come out, and I think that we'll probably see more of this with English exclusive. I expect to see more with RWBY, for example. But I also think that Seven Deadly Sins maybe wasn't a great set for this. It would almost make more sense to do this with a set that already has stuff out, but at the same time that kind of undermines the point, which is to show off the new cards. So I don't know what the answer is. I also know that, Bushiroad pays attention to how many people participate in events and how those events were received. So we'll see what they do in the future. I anticipate they might do something a little bit differently with their next English exclusive.
Speaking of Bushiroad, we also had a couple different announcements regarding Shop League coming up for the fall time. We have 2 different seasons. Season 1 going to be in September, October. Season 2 going to be in November, December. With that, we have a new batch of promos that are coming through. Promos are going to be done a little bit differently this time. We still have the participation promo. We still have the kind of season participation promo. But instead of having just a prize for the winner of the individual shop leagues, we have prizes going out to the top 4 of those shop leagues. So we have a little bit more prizes available at the top end for people that are participating that maybe fell just short of getting that first place prize.
So yeah, we will have promos for this event. At each individual event, they'll be giving out these mob promos from Mob Psycho 100, Level 0. The winner of each individual event will get a hot stamped version of this mob. Anyone who does not live in the regions where mob is tournament legal will instead receive the level 1 mosh that was a promo before. And then at the end of the season, the top 4 players will all receive a certificate and 1 copy of a hot stamped version of the level 1 Sally combo from Beaufry. And everyone who participates gets 2 participation points or more, will end up with a hot stamped level 0 Rimuru from Slime 2. Points will be given out based on finish. Showing up gets you 1, and you will, of course, get a PR. Finishing top 3 gets you additional points. At the end of the season, whoever has the most points, the top 4, will take a hot stamp Sally. So less differentiation between the people at the top in terms of their prizing this time around. Last time there was 1 hot stamp Kurumi, the Icy Tail from Dow. This time everyone's going to get the hot stamp who finishes top 4. I like Bushiroad's strategy of hot stamp reprints for prizes. I think that's really nice. I'm not a huge fan of unique cards. being prizes, because then that just makes them really hard to get if they become playable. Usually they're not that playable, but sometimes they are. And it can be a pain to try to track down, event promos if you need a playset. In this case, they will just be reprinting something for the winner PR, and the participation PRs are going to be everywhere because everybody gets one. So the level 1 Sally combo is certainly playable. Mob Psycho as a set is basically not playable, so I'm not super excited about the mob, I'm not going to lie. I really like the art on the Rimuru, though. What do you think, Brandon?
For the participation, they are new cards to those sets, but they're not really adding anything more to probably some of the better builds of those sets that doesn't already exist.
And also, those are going to be much easier to get because they're just going to be handed out to literally everyone who participates. So there are going to be a lot more of those than the winner promos.
The winner promos being kind of reprints, but with hot stamps. I think that that's a fantastic way to go about it, because then you're able still to demonstrate that you've won and be able to put those directly into decks that you can play if you're running with those cards. And it doesn't exclude anybody from being able to play those sets to that same kind of effectiveness.
It's really nice when every card is available at base rarity, and the cards that are not available at base rarity, at least from this promotional cycle, are going to be relatively easy to get a hold of. I mean, individual shops are potentially going to be giving out over 100 of these mobs. I could see someone trying to run this slime, but everybody's going to get a copy of the slime. Each shop is going to be giving out, probably upwards of a dozen of these in a lot of cases. So there will be these Rimurus around.
I like the idea of seeing something new for participation prizes, just because it gives a little bit more variance to those essentially sets that you've already bought into. Like if you bought into Mob, now you have an additional zero that you have access to a different profile on a zero. If you have bought into Slime, you have a different profile on a zero. Like I like the idea of adding more profiles into the sets just to give the different looks.
As long as they're easy to get. These, because they're literally participation promos, are easy to get. It also wouldn't be hard to acquire additional copies. If you're the Slime player at your locals and you want to get a playset of this, you should be able to get them from the other people who receive them as participation cards. Realistically, that's what's going to happen. I imagine that sort of thing is going to happen with these participation promos. The promos themselves are fine. The art is good. I'm not as big of a fan of this as, I really liked the Dice Bag, and I also really liked the Kurumi promo last time. I thought both of those were really nice. I'm going to use that Dice Bag for a long time. It's a very nice Dice Bag. And I think chasing something like a hot stamped Kurumi, which is an important card in a relevant set, is really cool. But it is what it is. It's Shop League. It's a competitive format. It's something to do going into the winter months while we prepare for Rumble. So hopefully you have a Shop League that you can participate in, and that will be starting up in September. So 4 months of Shop League divided over 2 seasons should be a good time. And that's everything we've got. Thank you for joining us today. We'll be back on Thursday with our final 5 cards, 5 minutes for Fate, talking about uncommons and commons. Brandon will have a deck next Tuesday. What deck is that going to be, Brandon?
All of them.
Okay, all of them. So Brandon will be previewing all of the decks on Tuesday, whatever that means. And then I suppose we'll just have gameplay for all of the decks that following Thursday. And another Clock Talk in 2 weeks, during which we will be talking about the Bushiroad strategy presentation and the new JP release announcements. It's going to be a good time. We got a lot of good stuff coming up. Thanks again for joining us. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and have a good one.
We'll see you then.